In this example, we're going to graph y equals 4 secant 1/2 x. So first, we're going to graph the cosine function that would correspond to this secant function. So we're going to graph y equals 4 cosine cosine of 1/2 x. So what is the amplitude? So we know that the amplitude is the absolute value of 4, which is just 4. So there's been a stretch of 4, but there's no reflection. The period is 2 pi divided by 1/2, or 2 pi times 2 over 1. So we have a period of 4 pi. There's no vertical shift, and so let's graph this cosine function. So again, when we're graphing the cosine function, all of the key points are going to happen at the quarter marks for our period. So we're going to take 4 pi and multiply it by 1/4 to cut it into quarters, which gives us 4 pi over 4, or just pi. So we're going to label our axes at pi units. So 0, pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, and then 4 pi. And then it has a maximum and a minimum of 4. So this is, I'll call that 4, and this -4, because we need some room to graph our secant function. So the cosine starts at a maximum, and since the a value is positive, it's going to still start at a maximum. Then at pi, we'll hit our x-intercept. 2 pi will hit the minimum. 3 pi, we will hit an x-intercept. And at 4 pi, we'll be back to our maximum. So this is our cosine function. We're going to use this cosine to graph our secant function. So we know that at every x-intercept for the cosine function, it turns into a vertical asymptote because the reciprocal of 0 is just an undefined value. So we get vertical asymptote at pi, and then we're going to have a vertical asymptote at 3 pi here for this graph. And then the maximum values become the minimum value of that section of our graph, and then it has the opposite concavity. So this is concave down. So our graph for this section is going to be concave up for our secant function. Here for our cosine function, it's concave up. This minimum becomes the maximum of that section, and it has concavity where it's concave down, like this. And then this part is going to be concave up because this one's concave down, and its minimum becomes, the maximum of the cosine becomes the minimum here. And this graph in purple is y equals 4 secant 1/2 x.